Hi and welcome to my presentation. My name is Evie and my topic was canine assisted therapy, specifically exploring the effects of specific canine interactions on anxiety. I chose this topic simply because I love dogs, so it made sense to choose a topic that I would find enjoyment out of, and so I was able to find out more about canines in the therapeutic space so I could bring that into my practice if required. So I started to look into canine assisted therapy as a whole and what that really meant in a therapy session. So first of all, canine assisted therapy is a therapeutic intervention using trained dogs to help people cope with challenging life experiences. For those of you who have pets or are in regular contact with dogs, you might already be aware of this. Dogs are very sensitive to our emotional states. They're very aware of how we're feeling and often come towards us as support. So in a canine assisted therapy setting, this can have excellent benefits as clients can feel more supported and they can be encouraged to talk more. Typical interactions within canine assisted therapy are very tactile, and these tactile interactions can lower stress and anxiety levels, decrease blood pressure, and generally make us feel a lot better, which overall makes us feel happier. I found one study which explored age in canine assisted therapy and how this may affect the therapeutic outcome. Findings suggested that when younger clients were in the session, they felt they were able to build rapport better with their therapist as the dog distracted the clients from shame and anxiety, which overall helped them with their self-esteem outside of the session. Whilst older clients found the sessions more comforting as the dog provided them with companionship and lowered feelings of loneliness. So there is a potential that age affects canine assisted therapy differently, which I found really interesting. So upon looking into canine assisted therapy, I then went on to look into independent dog activities. So dog walking was one of my choices. And of course, because walking is a form of exercise, we all know that it is excellent for our mental health. Scholars have said that those who exercise regularly are said to have better mental health than those who do not. As a dog is involved, this might be because the dog is a motivating factor for exercise, and potentially because when out on a walk, there is more chance of a social interaction. So people who do walk their dogs regularly might bump into other fellow dog walkers, or there might be some people who want to stop and talk to the dog, and then you can stop and talk to them. So the chances are it's much higher that you're going to stop and talk to somebody when you're just out walking on your own. Of course, as it is a form of exercise, there is a lower chance of developing any cardiovascular diseases. It's also said that owners who engage with their dogs in a walk, so maybe by playing with the dog, throwing a stick or a ball, that can make the owner happy, as the sight of their dog can be the sight of them being happy can be reflected back onto the owner, which overall makes the owner feel better. However, there is of course the chance that the dog on a walk is not well behaved whatsoever. It could be reactive, or the dog could run away or just not be very well trained. Could be very badly behaved, and that of course can actually make mental health worse for the owner. Anxiety and stress levels can rise, and generally if that happens, going out for a dog walk will not be an enjoyable experience. So mental health may deteriorate as a result. I then started to look into other activities, so I chose petting and playing. Along the way, I found a lot of links to anxiety and how these activities are both excellent in reducing anxiety. I discovered that anxiety is actually the most common mental health disorder within the United Kingdom. So actually, just being around dogs, playing with them, petting and walking all fantastically reduce anxiety as such. A link to canine assisted therapy I did find, and it is said from a few studies that pet dogs are actually more beneficial than a trained canine assisted therapy dog in reducing anxiety symptoms, as the bond between pet and the owner is very important. That's potentially because, of course, having a pet dog, you see it every single day, you engage with it every day, whereas in therapy, you may only see the dog once a week, twice every month, potentially, not as often as your own pet. Regular interactions with petting and playing are reducing the likelihood of any negative mental health symptoms returning. Maybe that's, again, similar because the dog is permanently around you, you have access to the dog every day. So it's almost like you have help on hand with the dog just being around you. One study found that people under 25 typically involve more active play with the dogs. That may, of course, have better physical health benefits for them later in life. Potentially because they are young, they are more active in general, and they are able to, compared to older people who aren't as flexible, aren't as physically able, and generally their health might be deteriorating by that point. So the gap in the research, we actually found that research had not addressed if one activity is better than the other for reducing anxiety. So we aim to fill this gap by exploring the effects of specific canine interactions on anxiety. And our hypotheses were that anxiety will reduce following any interaction with the dog, regardless of the interaction itself. And there will be a significant relationship between anxiety reduction and age following any interaction with a dog. Method. So for our participants, we had 1,100 in the first questionnaire, and in questionnaires 2 and 3, we had 39. They were recruited via opportunity sampling, and our inclusion criteria was that they had to be 18 plus, and they were excluded if they were allergic or had a fear of dogs. We had a 2x3x3 mixed quantitative design, and within that we had 3 age categories: young adult, adult, and older adult. And you can see there what category we have put the ages under. For the procedure, we had 3 questionnaires. We had 1 general questionnaire, 1 before questionnaire. We then had an intervention, and then after that, we had an after questionnaire. The measures of such will be looked at in the following slides. But within this, participants were asked to select an activity, so walking, petting, or playing, and the intervention got them to do that and report back on how they felt afterwards. The study was approved by the Ethics Committee, and the study adhered to the BACP ethical framework. For the first questionnaire, which was the general one, we measured how participants felt towards their own pet with the Comfort from Companion Animals scale, and the scale responses are on screen there to the left. Please pause if you'd like to look at this in a bit more detail, as I appreciate there's quite a lot of information here. We also looked at emotional responses, so how participants felt when they took part in all of the activities, walking, petting and playing with their own dog. This is prior to them choosing the activity that they're going to do in the following questionnaires. Responses to this are below the companion animal scale. Measures for questionnaires 2 and 3, we use the current anxiety level measure questionnaire, and responses to such are shown in front of you. What happened here was participants would complete this questionnaire before doing an activity that they choose to do, and after the intervention they would come back and do it again and report scores to see if there was a difference. Upon this, we would then look at their scores and see if there were any difference, and then we report it into the results section. We had very positive results for questionnaire 1. As you can see, we had 493 participants take part. So from the original 1,100, we did have to eliminate quite a few due to incomplete data. But of that data, we had an overwhelming majority of female participants. We had 14 male and 3 self-identified. The overall age range was 18 to 83 with a mean age of 42. Responses from the comfort from companion animals scale. The main response that I've put in here, that 405 participants strongly agreed that their dog improved their lives. There is more information on the responses in the handout to this, and it is quite long. Emotional responses, however, you can see on the screen there. Again, overwhelming majority, people feel happy when walking, petting and playing, particularly playing. And contentedness was also very high, along with relaxed. Not many people at all said that they felt angry and sad when walking the pet. Nobody felt sad or angry when petting their dog, and only one participant felt sad whilst playing with the dog. Whilst this scale did not measure anxiety, it could be consistent with hypothesis 1. Results were generally very good for questionnaires 2 and 3. We had 39 participants. We had 33 female and 6 male. The overall mean anxiety scores, so from the canine anxiety level measure responses, they did show a reduction. As you can see, the before scores were 25.95, and after, so once they had completed the activity, the overall response was 18.23. This does not take into account the activity, this is just generally overall scores. If we look at activity, we can see in the top box that every single activity did show a reduction in anxiety. Therefore, anxiety dropped overall for every activity, regardless of the activity itself, and that is consistent with hypothesis 1. The scores for age also showed that time by age was significant. Every category of age showed a reduction of anxiety. We carried out a post hoc test which showed that it was driven by the young adults, so 18 to 35 category. Therefore, this stayed consistent with hypothesis 2. Discussion and implications. So, as we have seen in the results section, both hypotheses were supported by the results and prior research. What does that suggest then? Well, simply just being with dogs is enough to improve mental health, irrespective of age and the activity that we do with them. This then agrees with research done in the introduction, as walking, petting and playing, we found out that it does reduce anxiety overall and makes us feel better. But why is that? Actually, it's still unclear what it is about dogs that benefits us so much. Some studies have considered a dog's nature. Dogs are very social creatures who love unconditionally and they do not judge us. But they're also a source of attachment bond through companionship. They're very loyal creatures who always have our back. And humans need companionship and they love loyalty. So it might be down to that, but again, as I've stated, it is still very unclear what it is about the dog. If we look into the hypotheses results in a bit more depth, we can look into why we think young adults drove the results. Young people are statistically more stressed, anxious, and depressed than older generations. But why might this be? So there are many financial stresses and the cost of living, which seem to be one of the main reasons. Moving out of the house, trying to get our own homes, seems to be almost impossible, and that is putting a lot of pressure on the younger generations. We also have the social media pressures, so the effects of the influencers that are showing us lives that are maybe unobtainable and putting a lot of pressure on to the younger generations, how we should look and act. That can be causing a lot of stress. And of course, there are health service backlogs and waiting periods that are longer, and people are not being seen quickly enough for treatment. This is maybe down to COVID and the effects that that had on the entire world. If we look on the other side, older generations are actually living longer. They're more active, they're healthier, and they're more financially stable. This could be due to improvements in nutrition, medical advancements, and general hygiene, which is reducing mortality rates and generally just seeing us living a longer life. What then is the impact this study has on our field? Well, we could encourage placements and organisations to consider therapy dogs for clients in sessions. We are aware that canine-assisted therapy is excellent for mental health, and just being around dogs themselves is excellent to reduce anxiety and stress. We could further encourage clients to spend time with their pets as a self-care strategy, particularly younger clients, as the study highlighted that their anxiety was higher than other age groups, but also that their results had the greatest decrease in anxiety upon interacting with a dog. For the client and ourselves, we might want to consider spending time with the dogs in other settings or spending more time with them, by way of maybe exploring voluntary work with dogs at shelters, dog walking, or even on placement if there are any. That links in nicely to my take-home message. Spend more time with your dog. They take care of us more than we think, and they are absolutely amazing. But also, why not reach out and see if canine-assisted therapy is something that you would enjoy? Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I welcome any questions that you have, and the following slides will be my references. And the dogs here that you can see are some that have had a really big impact on me throughout my lifetime. Thank you.